Okay, let's go and walk through this. Who can and we're going to go by rows. So the first row is going to be 1, 2, 3, second row 4, 5, 6, and so on. Okay, so who can walk me through the first problem? Osmond. Well, parentheses, we're not really thinking about absolute value right now. Right now we want to have one sign in front of each number. Remember that at the beginning of the year? So I have two signs in front of it, 10. Can we make that into one sign? What happens when I have two different signs in front of a number? Where do they become? Right, that's going to be a minus. And then what happens if I have no sign in front of a number? What does it become? Positive. Now, I have two numbers. They're different signs. How do I find the magnitude of my answer? Am I going to take the sum or am I going to take the difference? The difference. So what's the difference of 8 and 10? It's going to be 2. And then the answer sign is going to be what? Negative. Why is it going to be negative? 10 is the larger magnitude. Negative 10 is further away from 0 than positive 8. So the answer sign is going to be negative. Okay, do you guys remember this? Okay. Now, who can explain to me number 2, the second problem? Yes, Mr. Harrington. Okay, 2 doesn't have a sign, so I'm going to put a plus there. I have 2 signs in front of 10, and they're going to become what? Positive 10. Now, I'm adding this, I have add 2, add 10. Same signs, what are we going to do when we have same signs? We're going to add, so let's add our magnitudes. What's 2 and 10? 12. And what's the sign of my answer going to be? Positive. So when I have the same sign, I add them and I keep their signs. Okay, so if I had 2 negatives, I would add the 2 negative numbers and the answer would be a negative. Okay, so in this case, I have 2 positives, I add them, and I keep the sign. It's a positive 12. Who's got the next problem? Goldis.
What you can do is you put positive signs in both of the numbers.
Okay, so 8 has a positive, 5 has a negative.
Oh, negative.
Okay, so what's next?
And you will, well, you know it's going to be positive because 8 is bigger than
Right,
5.
8 is the larger magnitude, so my answer sign is going to be positive. And what do I do with my numbers?
And then you subtract them.
I take the difference because they're different signs. So what's the difference of 8 and 5?
3.
It's going to be 3. So my answer is positive 3. Okay? Who has the next problem over here? Yes, Taylor.
So you would put a positive sign in front of the 8.
Okay, that's a positive 8.
And then there are 2 signs, there are 2 negative signs in front of the 2, and then you make that positive.
Okay, I have 2 signs that are the same. They become positive. And then now what? I have 2 positive numbers, so what am I doing with the numbers?
You would add 8 and 2.
I'm going to take the sum of 8 and 2 because they're both positive, so that's going to be what?
10.
10. And what's my answer sign going to be?
Positive.
Positive, because the 2 numbers are positive, my answer sign is going to be positive. Okay? Now, who's got the next one? Yes, Leah.
So since there's no sign in front of the 1, we're going to put it as a positive.
Okay. 1 doesn't have a sign, it's a positive. And then what?
And since there's 2 signs in front of the number 7, we're going to circle them, and then we're going to make that a positive.
Okay. 2 negatives, same signs, become a positive. Now what?
And then we add them together.
Okay, I'm going to take the sum because the 2 numbers have the same signs. We're taking the sum. What's that going to be?
It's going to be 8.
8. And what's my answer sign going to be?
Positive.
It's going to be a positive 8. Very good. Okay, next problem. Who's got this one? Ben in the back.
Oh, so since 4 doesn't have a sign, it's positive.
Yep.
And since 4 and 2 have the same sign, it's adding.
Okay, so take the sum.
4 plus 2 and add 6.
Okay, and what's the answer sign going to be?
Positive.
Positive. Very good. Okay, who's got the next one over here? Who's got this one? Rayhan.
So since there's positive and negative as well. So, but because, yeah, so you have to circle the negative and positive.
Well, are they same signs or different signs?
Different.
So what do we do with the numbers then?
Oh, then you'll have to. Oh,
We're either going to take the sum of 2 and 6, or we're going to take the difference of 2 and 6. What are we going to do?
we're going to be taking the sum.
No, when they're the same signs, we take the sum. When they're different signs, we take the difference. So what's the difference of 2 and 6?
That's 4.
4. And now, Rehan, what's the answer sign going to be?
The answer sign is going to be negative, not positive.
Right, and why is it going to be positive?
Because 6 is the magnitude that is larger.
Positive 6 has a greater magnitude than negative 2. Or you can think about it this way. It's farther away from 0. So I'm going to keep the sign with the number that has the larger magnitude. 6 has the larger magnitude, so my answer sign is positive because 6 was positive. Okay? Who can answer the next one? And I was really surprised throughout the day. My first 2 periods got it wrong. My period after lunch, they got it right. They were surprised that the periods earlier got it. For some reason, this was a hang-up for some students. So, McKinley, you want to give it a shot? Go ahead.
The difference, sum is the same.
They both have the same sign, so we're going to take the sum. So what's the sum going to be?
I would say -8.
Well, if I take the sum of 4 and 4, that's going to be 8. So same signs, take the sum, 8, and then keep the sign, -8. So you're right, yes. Okay, now what about this next problem over here? Who's got this one? Who can walk us through? Somebody I haven't heard from yet? India, can you walk me through this problem?
So both of the negative numbers, both negative,
I have 2 signs in front of the 7. I want to make it 1. And what do those 2 same signs become?
positive.
Okay, so that's going to be a positive 7 now. What's the sign in front of 9? If there's no sign, I can always put a plus there. And so I have a positive 9, a positive 7. What do I do with the numbers? Am I going to take the difference or the sum? They're the same sign, so we're going to take the sum. And so what's that going to be? That's going to be 16. And then what's the sign of my answer going to be? Positive. I'm going to keep the sign that they all share. So it's a positive 16. Okay, and then last problem right here. Who can answer this one for me? Jose, can you answer this question for me? They're the same sign, so what do we do with the numbers? We're going to take the sum. What's the sum of 1 and 0? It's going to be 1. And what's the sign of my answer? We keep the sign that they share, so it's going to be a -1. Okay? All right. Rokar, do you want to get the next one? What's the next one going to be? About the last one? About which one? It's not about this? Then I'm not going to answer it right now. Who can answer the next question? Yes, Miriam.
2.
Walk me through it.
You put a positive sign in front of 7.
7 doesn't have a sign, so I'm going to put a plus there. I have a +7 and a -5. They're different signs, so what am I going to do with the numbers?
You're gonna find the difference.
I'm going to take the difference of 7 and 5, and what is that?
2.
2. And what's the answer sign going to be?
Positive.
Positive. Why is it going to be positive?
Because 7 is farther away from 0.
Positive 7 is farther away from 0 than -5. So the number with the larger magnitude, we're going to keep that sign for my answer. Okay, last problem. And then we're going to see how this applies to what we've been working on this unit. So who can walk me through this one? Lopez, can you walk me through this? Okay, so I have 2 signs in front of 10, and they're different signs, so what do they become if I make it 1 sign? Okay, that's good. So it's a minus. So I have a -5 and a -10, right? So I have 2 numbers, same signs. Am I going to take the sum of the numbers or the difference of the numbers? Same signs, we take the sum. So 5 and 10 is what? 15. And we're going to keep the sign that they share. It's going to be a negative 15. Okay, now we're going to put this in practice with fractions. So here's the example. This is from the book. This isn't really a lesson in the book, but there is a set of homework problems that go with this. So I'm going to walk us through this right now. You also know how to add positive decimals, fractions, and mixed numbers. You're going to use these skills to add and subtract any rational number. So everything we did in the warm-up, we're going to apply it here. If you look at this problem right here, we're taking the sum of 1/2 plus negative 3/4. We're going to represent this on the number line. What I want you to do is I want you to sketch the number line. I want you to solve that sum of rational numbers, and then we're going to model it. So take some time. Go ahead and write these out. Sketch your graph. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Who has the clipboard?
No problem. I don't have it. No problem. No? Wow. I'm just gonna make it.
Nope.
Whoever was responsible.
No, I need you guys to do this. Shh. Go ahead.
What are we doing?
You're trying, I just explained to you. You're trying to solve that problem. And we're using what we did for the warm-up and applying it to fractions now. When you have an answer. You could look at your neighbors to see what the problem is without disrupting them. Okay. Hopefully you had a chance to copy this number line. It doesn't have to be really pretty or perfect, but we need to think about this in the same way we thought about the warm-up. So first of all, we're going to find the sum of these two fractions. The first fraction, there's no sign with it, right? What's the sign going to be? Positive 1/2. And then I have plus a negative 3/4. Well, if you recall from my warm-up, we don't want to have two signs in front of a number, right? Whether it's a fraction or an integer. So I need to fix that. What is that going to become?
Minus.
It's going to become a minus. So here we go. This becomes a minus. So I'm going to rewrite this. I have a positive 1/2, and then I have minus 3/4. Okay. Can I solve this as is?
No.
All right, so now I've used what we did earlier to get my signs, but now I got to use what we know about fractions. Well, what do I need to change? Ben,
The denominator.
right, what are we going to find? What do we call that?
Oh, the denominator. It's the equivalent.
What do we?
You have to find the LCM.
The least common multiple of the denominators, but we have a name for the least common multiple of the denominators. It's called the what? The LCD, the least common denominator. So what's the LCD going to be, class? 4. So I'm going to rewrite this fraction 1/2 as what?
2/4.
2/4. And I don't have to change the second fraction because it's already got a 4 in the bottom. And what's my answer going to equal? So I have two fractions, different signs, so I'm going to take the difference. What's the difference of 2 and 3? 1. I keep the denominator, 4, and then I'm going to take the sign of the larger magnitude. Which is the larger magnitude? Is it positive 2/4 or negative 3/4? Negative 3/4 is farther from 0, so my answer sign is going to be negative. Now, let's go ahead and model this on the number line above. And I'm going to try to coordinate the colors the same way I showed them in my work below. So here, 1/2. So I'm going to move in fourths. So this is 1/4. This is 2/4. That's a positive 1/2. Okay, or positive 2/4. Do you guys understand what I just did? Your question about this? What's your question?
How did, so when the warm up, you said whatever the sign, whatever number has the greater number with the sign.
The one with the greatest magnitude?
Yes. So
Isn't 3/4 more than 2/4?
Yes.
Right. So we're going to keep the sign of the larger magnitude.
how did you get the denominator as 4? That was positive 1/2 minus negative 4.
Well, we couldn't add a 1/2 to and negative 3/4. We had to get a common denominator. So we rewrote 1/2 as 2/4. Isn't 2 half of 4? Just like 1's half of 2. So these two fractions are equivalent. Okay. Once we had common denominators, then we could take the difference because they both had a 4 in the denominator. And the difference of 2 and 3 was 1. And do you understand why the answer is negative? Because negative 3/4 is the larger magnitude. So I've shown positive 1/2 on the number line above. Now I got to show negative 3/4. 1, 2,
Excuse me, can I have
3.
garage to the front desk for a moment, please, Dominique?
Yep, on our way.
Thank you.
And you see that takes me back to negative 1/4. Okay, so do you guys understand how I modeled this? Okay, good, because what you're going to do now is you're going to model your own. Here are the problems. I'm going to read it. Represent each sum or difference on a horizontal number line, then find each sum or difference. So you're just reusing the same number lines that we used for the first example. And you're going to represent and model your answer on the number line, but you're going to work it out. Okay? So go ahead and get that done. That's going to be your new spot. I think it's interesting. Your head didn't hurt when she was asking to leave her alone, but now your head suddenly hurts. Mm-hmm. Ava, take your stuff with you. Take your stuff with you. Okay, who can walk me through this first problem? McKinley.
So, as you can see, it says negative 34 divided by
Negative 3/4
divided by 5.
plus 5/8. That's a plus.
That's a plus one.
We're not doing division and multiplication yet. We are going to get there this unit, but not yet.
So on the line segment, it says negative.
Can I add or subtract these like they are?
No, you have to find the LCD.
I got to find the LCD. So what's the LCD going to be? 8. So that means I only got to change one of my fractions, right? Can you change that fraction for me? What's it going to be if I change the denominator to 8?
3/8.
Can't make it 3/8. That's not equal to 3/4.
What does changing?
I do need to change the denominator, but I can't just change the denominator without other things. Taylor, can you explain to him what he's got to do?
So since there's going to be, since the LCD is 8, then you have to find how many times 4 goes into 8. So then 4 times 2 would be 8, so you'd have to do 3 times 2. So then
6.
Okay. So if you change the denominator to 8, you had to multiply that by 2. That means I got to do the same thing to the numerator. 3 times 2 is 6. Okay? So negative 6/8 is equal to negative 3/4. Got it? Those are equivalent fractions.
So I'm changing 5/8 to 6/8.
No, I don't have to change 5/8 because it's already got an 8 in the bottom.
Oh, no, never mind.
Okay. Continue. What do I got now?
Slash you.
Oh, 11.
Well, look at my signs. Are they the same signs or are they different signs?
They're different.
Remember about the warm-up? If they're different signs, what am I going to do?
Use the sign with the greater number.
Okay, I am. That's true. That's part of it. So my answer sign is going to be what? Which one's the larger magnitude? Negative 6/8 or positive 5/8? Which one's farther from 0? Negative 6/8. So my answer sign is going to be negative. But now I got to figure out what my fraction is going to be. If I have different signs, am I going to take the sum or the difference? Right. So let's take the difference. What's the difference going to be to give us our fraction?
11.
No, you took the sum. You need to take the difference.
Oh, subtract 1.
Right. Very good. So it's a negative 1/8. Okay, so you understand like the steps to get there? Now let's go ahead and model this. If you guys notice, every 2 marks is a fourth. So every 2 marks, I got another fourth. So this would be a fourth. This would be 2/4 or a half. This is 3/4 and so on. But every mark in between is an eighth. So this, if I go negative 6/8, I'm going to the left. This is negative 1/8, negative 2/8, which is also equal to negative 1/4, negative 3/8, negative 4/8, 5/8, and 6/8. Do you see why that's negative 6/8? Okay. Now I got to add 5/8. So I'm going the other direction because add is positive to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8. I just added 5/8. And that left us on negative 1/8. Okay, so do you guys see how we modeled that? Yeah. Okay, they overlap. Who can walk me through the next example? Miriam.
So they have the same denominator. Well, you have to put a plus sign in front of 1/4.
Okay, no sign, so it's a 1/4. And I'll just rewrite it over here. That's a positive 1/4. Okay.
And it's gonna, since it's negative 3/4 has 2 signs in front of it.
Uh-huh.
So, and they're the same. They're 2 negative signs, so
Uh-huh.
it's gonna equal a positive.
Okay, so now we have a positive 3/4. Okay, so what's next?
Their answer is gonna be positive
Right, so same signs, we're going to keep the signs, which is going to be positive, but what about the numbers, the magnitudes, what are we going to do with that?
We're gonna add the
Okay,
numerators.
so what's that going to be?
4 over 4.
4/4, which is equal to what?
1 whole.
Positive 1, good. So how do we model this on our number line? Let's go ahead. I got 0. I'm going to add 4, a fourths. So here it is, plus 1/4. And now I'm going to add 3/4. And every 2 represents 1/4. So that's 1/4, 2/4, and 3/4. So plus 3/4 leaves me at 1. That's my answer. Okay, positive 1. Any questions about that? Okay, notice the difference between this problem and the first problem. If they're both the same sign, they're not going to overlap. Do you guys understand? When they're different signs, they overlap. When they're the same signs, they don't overlap. So moving right along, let's do these two really quickly. And then we're going to do our quick check. Can you answer this? You don't think so? You think you can? Walk me through it then. What's the first thing I got to do? Okay, so these two become a minus because they're different signs. And what's the sign in front of 3/4? Okay, there's no sign, so that's a positive 3/4. I'm just going to rewrite it over here. I got positive 3/4. And then I got to subtract something. But I can't subtract a half from 3/4. I got to subtract something else. What do I got to subtract from that? Got to find the LCD, the least common denominator, which is what? Which is 4. So I need to rewrite negative a half as what fraction? Negative 2/4. Okay, that's an equivalent fraction. Now, can you go ahead and walk me through to get to the final answer? Now we have common denominators, so what's my final answer going to be? You're saying negative 1/4? Okay, so it is going to be 1/4. You are taking the difference, but you keep the sign of the larger magnitude, and positive 3/4 is farther away from 0 than negative 2/4. So it's going to be a positive 1/4. So let's go ahead and draw this up. I have a positive 3/4, so I'm going to go to the right 3. 1, 2, that's 3/4 plus 3/4. And then I have to take I have to subtract 2/4. So I'm going to go backwards. 1, 2/4, that's minus 2/4. And that leaves me right on positive 1/4. Okay? And then the last problem. Who can walk me through that? Last one. Somebody I haven't heard from yet. Please close your laptops. We're not done yet. Taylor, go ahead.
So first you have to find the LCD,
Okay.
and for 4 and 8, the LCD would be 8, and you don't have to change -5, and so all you have to do is change negative 1/4.
Okay, so negative 1/4 changed with an LCD of 8 is going to be what?
Negative 2/4.
Okay, so 2/8. 1/4 becomes 2/8. And then 5/8 we don't have to change, so that just stays the same.
So then after that, since it's two of the same signs,
Mhm.
then you would add
Same signs, we're going to add them, and what's the numerator going to be?
7,
7.
and the denominator would be 8,
And then what's the sign going to be?
negative.
Very good, -7/8. So let's go ahead and model this. -2/8. Remember, each of these are worth an eighth, so I'm going negative, -1/8, -2/8, which simplifies to 1/4. So that's -2/8. But then I need to subtract 5/8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8. That's -5/8. And that leaves me right on -7/8. Okay, so I do have one more problem. It's a little different than these. Question about this? Last problem. It's a decimal. There's the homework. There are 2 activities to choose from. There are more activities than 2. Pick 2. Don't pick the ones I've already done in class. Pick 2 that I haven't done in class. On these 2 pages, they're pages in the front of the book. And then there's some exercises. You don't really get to choose which exercises to do. Those are the exercises to do. But for this problem, can you guys go ahead and answer this problem right here? It's the last problem of the day.
These are decimals.
Right. They're rational numbers. A rational number is any number that you could write as a fraction. It can be a fraction, or it can be a decimal that you can write as a fraction. Okay, can somebody share with the class their answer? First of all, if I have 2 numbers, they have different signs, what do I do with those 2 numbers?
Subtract.
I'm going to subtract. I'm going to find the difference. So when I find the difference, I typically like to put the larger number, the larger magnitude on top. Okay, so we're going to find the difference. This is what you usually would do mentally, but we're going to do this right here. So 5 minus 5 is 0. 2 minus 7, I got to regroup. That's going to become a 12. This is going to become a 1. 12 minus 7, what is that?
5.
That's going to be 5. I bring my decimal straight down. And then 1 minus 1 is 0. And then what's my sign going to be?
Negative.
It's going to be negative because 2 had the larger magnitude. So move this off to the side. -2 1/4. So if I go this way, this is 2 1/2, 1, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/4. So this is minus 2.25, 2 2500ths. But then I need to add 1 7500ths. So each of these are worth a quarter. So this is half, a whole, and then did that leave me at the right place? This is a quarter, that's 0.5, that's 1, that's 1/50, and that's 1/75. So this is plus 1 7500ths. And actually, I should have done that in blue. I apologize. So that's a whole. That's 150. Okay, that's plus 1 75 hundredths. And that leaves me at negative 0.505 tenths. Okay, any questions? All right, I have the answers in the notes to the quick check. Before you leave, I need you to take lesson 4 quick check.